Hi, welcome to the Jazziest of hands. They are a couple hand practices. Whether you're doing manual labor or typing, doing a lot of repetitive motion with the hands can get tight. So this is stuff that I do almost daily just to add some vitality to my hands. I'm showing this, so what you're looking through is the back of a yoga chair. I'm going to do this on the chair, this is for the camera, so you get a good angle to see what my hands are doing. But you can do this on hands and knees on your mat. You can do this standing, kind of leaning over a table. So whatever angle is best for your hands. So let's get started with the hand practices. So the first practice I want to do is to stretch out the palmar fascia. So most people know what plantar fascia is, the fascia of the feet. This is the palmar fascia, the fascia of the palms. And so I'm going to stand out to the side here. So I'm out to the side, and what I'm going to do is turn my fingers 90 degrees out to the side, and then 90 degrees toward me, okay? If that hurts, stick with 90 out to the side, but you're going to spread your fingers as much as you can. And what I do to stretch the fascia and not bend the wrists too much is I press the first knuckles down, and then I peel the wrist up. And you see how that's much more easy on the bones of the wrist than doing something like this. So I happen to be able to do that, but that's not getting the hand stretch as much. So you're going to press these first knuckles down. You can use your spare hand to push down as you peel up. And then we're going to hold this for a few breaths here. So this is the first practice here. With your spare hand, you can press down in the fingers. Again, peel up the palm. And if this is too much of a wrist bend, you can always adjust your upper arm. You see how I can get a hand stretch and my wrist doesn't have to bend as much. So take a deep breath in and then exhale. So you release. What I do, the quicker the better, make a fist. A lot of nerve endings in the hands, so that might be pretty intense. And you see a lot of blood coming back into the hands. You can notice the difference. Let's try that on the other side. So now I'm saying on the other side, you turn your fingers out to the side, and this is option number one. Option number two is you turn them up to another 90 degrees toward you. Spread your fingers so your fingerprints are pressing down. And the first knuckles here, you can either just press them down with just the one hand, or you can add your spare hand, press your palms down. And the idea here is to peel the palm away from, well, for me it's away from the chair, but for you away from the table or away from the floor. And then you hold it and you let the stretch soak into the palmar fascia for a bit. And you might notice that one side's a bit tighter than the other. Notice that. If I bend this elbow a little, that increases the stretch. It also increases the bend of the wrist. If that's too much, you just shift your arm so there's less wrist bend. So this is a way you can get a palm stretch without a ton of wrist bend. And there's two more breaths here. Okay, and then you release. The quicker the better. Make a fist, and you'll feel blood and sensation come back in to the palms. So that's for the palmar fascia of the fingers. To get the thumb, you can do this bilaterally on both sides at the same time. You're going to take your thumbprints down, and so the first knuckle of my index finger, it's also on the chair. I slide the first knuckle away from the thumbs. And so it's less about pushing down into the thumb joint and more about stretching the fascia of your thumbs. Okay, I'll do that again just so you can see. So the thumbs stay where they are. Slide your first knuckle away from your thumbs. And then you can add a little bit of weight, and that should be giving you a fair amount of stretch. Yeah, and you let the pose work on you. All right. And take a deep breath in, And then exhale, you can wiggle your thumb around. And that stretches the more superficial tissues of the front of the hand. All right, we're gonna do the lumbrical stretch and the interosseal stretch next. So this is where, if you have sensitive joints, maybe just skip this one. One of my former students who moved up to Boston, but she was doing research. This particular one, more than any other hand exercise, she said sort of it reduced carpal tunnel pain. So I'm so glad she showed me that, so thank you, Nancy. But you're going to really flex the last two knuckles, and the first knuckles are extended. So I'm gonna move out to the side again. Okay, so your most distal two knuckles are very flexed. If that hurts, again, just do this lightly, but you can either press down with just the hand itself, or I take the, sort of like a karate chop, the pinky side of my palm and just add a little bit of weight, and I push down. Okay, and so this is a lumbrical stretch. They're really deep bone muscles in almost in between the bones, almost. To include a stretch of the interosseals, the muscles between the bones, you take the skin one direction and you take the skin the other direction. And my intention on this one is to rotate the bones of the palm, the metacarpals, a few times. So I'll show this here. You see that this is sort of angling to one side and angling to the other side. That means that these bones are rotating just a little bit, and that's all they have to do. So this is a really deep palm stretch. You go back and forth like this a few times. Okay, and then from there you release, get some blood and sensation around. And even before you go to the other side, you can just kind of notice the difference between the two wrists. I don't know about you, but for me, it always feels like my wrists are more like lucid on one side or clear. So let's try that on the other side. Let's take your other fingers down. And again, the most distal, that's away from the body, two knuckles. So your fingernails are kind of on, like my fingernails are on the chair. So these two knuckles are very bent. These knuckles are extended, which means these knuckles are going down. And you can either press down here with just the weight and the pressure of one hand. If it's available, if it makes sense for your joints, you can take the pinky side and add some weight into your hand. And so this is the stretch for the lumbricals. And you see, so this is a lot of finger work, but again, not really a lot of the wrist is involved here. You could go up like this, I guess, a little bit, but for the lumbricals, it doesn't make that much of a difference. Okay, and you kind of stay here. If you want to work the interosseal muscles a little bit, that's the muscles in between bones. So you're going to push down, and it's like you're sawing the skin, which means the bones are going to go to one side, and the bones are going to the other side. So you see there's a little bit of a rotation of this bone here, of this phalange. It goes to the one side, it goes to the other side, and that indicates there's a tiny bit of rotation in the bones of the palm. Move back and forth like this a few times. You might notice one side feels a little stickier than the other one. Okay. Very good. And so from here, you release, extend and flex your fingers, kind of notice hands. Hopefully they feel pretty good so far. I'm going to remove the chair. Okay, so that was getting into this side of the hand. There's also our extensors on the back side of the hand here. And a lot of people, if they feel their wrists are tired, they'll do this, which that's not bad, but that doesn't really target these tendons, these finger extensors, as much as this next practice. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna flex the fingers as much as you can. So it's like thumbs up, and take your thumb and see if you can cap your thumb on top of that first finger. And what this is gonna do, it's gonna keep the integrity of the fist. And then you're gonna take, this is palms facing up, and it's like you're trying to take your knuckles into the ribs. And from here, the idea is to just relax your hands, and this should give you a stretch on the back of your fingers and the back of your palm. Some people feel this all the way up to the elbow. There are some muscles that travel that whole distance. But with the integrity of the fist, if the hands relax, watch my wrists. As my hands relax, all of a sudden my wrists bend a lot more, and that's just harder for the bones of the wrist. So making the thumbs up, capping that first knuckle and keeping the integrity of the fist, for me, makes it easy for the bones and more strenuous, and I mean that in a good way, and more strenuous for the back of your hands and the back of your palms. And then the more relaxed you are, this is yin, the more relaxed your arms are, the more intensive a stretch it'll be. So 2 more breaths here. Take a deep breath in. Big exhale. And one last time, take a deep breath in. Okay, then to get out of here, you just lift your elbows, release, and move your hands around a couple times in one direction, a couple times in the other direction. All right, so that's something I came up with for the back of the hands. Finally, the webbing and the tissue between our fingers, I really like to stretch that out, especially if I have been doing a lot of keyboarding. So basically, there's 2 ways to stretch out the webbing, and that's just sending your fingers in two directions. So I'm gonna start with my first finger, and what I do is maximize the distance between my first finger and my second finger in one way. So you see that? So stretching the webbing in one way. It'll be the same 2 fingers, they'll just go in the opposite direction. So that's the other way, and I hold that for a bit. And then I go between my middle finger and my ring finger. I'll stretch it out in one way. So I'm trying to take my middle finger and my ring finger in opposite directions. And then I switch. Oh, I just got a little bit of a crack. Don't know if you heard that. Good pop. Some pops are good. And then from there, from between the ring finger and pinky finger, there's a stretch. Fingers go in one direction, and then your fingers go in the other direction. And then we try that on the other side. So index finger and middle finger, you're going to stretch them in one direction, in opposite directions. And you hold. And then from here, same thing the other side. And then you do that between middle finger and ring finger. Stretch the fingers in opposite directions. Same 2 fingers. You switch directions. Taking a stretch between them. If you can see that. And then from your ring finger and your pinky finger, you stretch in one direction. And you stretch in the other direction. release. And I hope that brought a lot of sort of brightness, Shakti, energy to your hands. And so yeah, so that's something I do fairly often, and it really helps me, my hands be really like sensate and be very much a part of my body. And just thank you so much for watching. Take care.